In this video, we're going to look at how to solve some of the problems that are a little more challenging. So I am starting on page 126 in your workbook, and we're starting with problem number 7. So it asks us to find the measure of angle ADC, which is this angle right here, and angle ABC, which is this angle right here. So let's start with this one, this angle D right here. So we're going to have to use all the things we know about properties of triangles to find clues to help us solve the things that we don't know. So we know that this angle right here is 90 degrees because if this side is 90 degrees, that means this side is 90 degrees because the angles on a line add up to 180. So we know this is 90. This is the one we're trying to find. And it tells us that this little angle right here is 28 degrees. So I have two of the angles, and I just need to find the third. So I know they all need to add up to 180. So I just say 180 minus the 90 minus the 28, and that leaves me with 62 degrees for this one right here. So when we're trying to find ABC, again, we have a right triangle. So I know these two together will add up to 90. And so I've got to figure out what this little angle is right here. So I know this whole big angle A is 90 degrees. And so you have to look real carefully because both these angles together add up to this 90 degrees. So if this little one right here is 28, 90 minus 28 is 62. So that means this angle right here is 62 degrees. And that's part of this triangle right here. So if this is 62 and this is 90, if I say 180 minus 90 minus 62, that will leave me 28 degrees. So this angle right here is 28 degrees. Okay, let's look at number 8. Same idea. We're going to look for clues about things that we know to solve what we don't know. So it's asking us to solve EGF. So that's this angle right here. And it's also asking us to find DGE, which is this little angle right here. Okay, so we know that the big angle is 90 degrees. So we know that both of the angles will add up to 90 degrees. But let's see how we can figure it out. So I know that EGF, this triangle, I'm going to erase these because we don't know this yet. I don't want that to confuse you. Okay. So I know this is 90 because it tells me that. I know this is 26 because it tells me that. So if I want to find this angle right here, I can just say 180 minus 90 minus 26 gives me 64. That's how I got the 64 right there. And then I know that these together add up to 90 degrees because this big G angle, it tells me, is 90 degrees. So if I say 90 minus 64, that gives me 26. So that means this little angle right here is 26 degrees. Okay. So now we're moving on to the next page and looking at problem number 14. And immediately what I see when I look at it is that we've got an isosceles triangle because these two sides are equal. And we also have a right triangle because I see this is a right angle right here. So I'm immediately thinking in my head, what are the properties of an isosceles triangle and a right triangle? All right, so let's look and see what they're asking us to solve. They want us to solve TRS. So we're looking to solve what is this little angle right here. Well, I know this is 90. And that means I know that these two angles together are going to add up to 90. So how can I figure out what this S is? Well, I know this is an isosceles triangle, and I know with isosceles triangles, these two sides are equal, and remember the opposite angles are equal. So if this angle is 20, that means this angle is 20. Okay? So now we can say, we know this is a right triangle, so these together will add up to 90. So I can just say 90 minus 20, and that gives me 70. So TRS equals 70 degrees. Okay, so when I look at this one, again, I immediately see we're dealing with an isosceles triangle. So that means these opposite angles are going to be equal. And we have a right triangle. So that means that the opposite two angles will add up to 90 degrees. So it's asking me to find angle D right here. So I'm going through all my properties thinking about what I know. So I know this is a right angle. I know I need to figure out what this angle is equal to, because once I find out what this is equal to, that's going to help me figure out what D is equal to. I know this is isosceles, so that means that not only are the opposite sides equal, but the opposite angles are equal. So I know that angle W is equal to angle Y. And I know this big angle X, when we're looking at the big triangle, is 86 degrees. So if I say 180 minus 86, that gives me 94. So that means these two angles together added up would be 94 degrees. And I know they're equal, so I'm just going to divide it by 2 to find out what each of them are equal to. So that means each of them are equal to 47 degrees. So now I know this is 90, this is 47, so I just need to say 180 minus 90 minus 47, that gives me 43. So this little angle right here is equal to 43 degrees. Okay. So this is our last page. We'll start with 24. And again, it tells us these triangles are not drawn to scale. That means that we can't just eyeball it. We have to use what we know about triangles to figure it out. I'm going to erase this so it doesn't confuse you at first. Okay, so it's very important to read the clues that they give you. It tells us that WX, I'm reading this right here, plus XY plus YW, excuse me, I'm sorry, they're telling us that each of these are equal. So we know we've got an equilateral triangle. So as soon as we know we have an equilateral triangle, then the properties of an equilateral triangle start going through my head. So the first thing I know is with an equilateral triangle, all the angles are equal to 60 degrees. So that means this whole big angle is 60 degrees. Okay? Also, we know all the sides are equal. And they are asking us to find angle D right here. Okay, so if I look at this triangle right here, I know this is a right angle because this side is a right angle, which means this side is a right angle. So I have 180 total minus 90 for the right angle, minus 60, because we know all the angles are 60 because it's an equilateral triangle. That leaves me with 30 degrees. That means this little angle right here is 30 degrees. Okay, let's look at number 25. Okay, so 25, let's see what it tells us. This time, all it is telling us is that we're trying to find the measure of angle E. So we're trying to find this little angle right here. But these hash marks tell us that this triangle right here is an equilateral triangle. So as soon as I know that this is an equilateral triangle, and I know that because it's telling me all the sides are equal, I know that means that all the angles are equal too, and they're all equal to 60 degrees. Now, this triangle right here is an isosceles triangle, and I know that because it's telling me that this side and this side are equal. So that's going to tell me that these two little angles are also equal. So we'll see if we need that. So this is the part with these, you really have to visualize this. So this right angle means that this whole angle right here, this angle LON, is a right angle. So if this little piece is 60, that means this little piece has to be 30, because 30 plus 60 would equal 90. Okay? That's the key, is right here recognizing that this whole thing is 90, and it's divided into these two little angles. So one is 60 and one is 30. So now that we know this little angle is 30, since this is an isosceles triangle down here, that tells us that not only are the opposite sides equal, but the opposite angles are equal. So that means this right here is going to be 30. So once we know that, we know two of the angles, so we can easily find the third. We can say angle E is equal to 180 minus 30 minus another 30, which leaves us with 120 degrees. So that means this angle E right here is equal to 120 degrees. Okay, last problem. Let's see. Okay, so let's read what they tell us. Angle PQR, so that PQR tells us that this big triangle right here is equilateral. So with that being equilateral, we know that all the angles are equal to 60 degrees. So let's go ahead and write that. 60, 60, and then this big angle P, I just wrote it out to the side, but it represents this whole thing right here. Okay? Then it tells us PST, so triangle PST. So this little triangle in the middle is an isosceles triangle. So immediately we're saying to ourselves, okay, that means these two sides are equal, which is shown by those hash marks. And we know that these two angles are going to be equal. So that might be of help to us. So it says it says the measure of A, B, and C are the same. And it's asking you to find the measure of D. So if we want to know the measure of D, then we got to figure out what is the measure of B and this little angle. So then we can subtract it from 180 to get this one. So we know that B and A and C are all equal, excuse me, and that they all add up to 60, because we knew when it was an equilateral triangle that this whole big angle right here was 60. So 60 divided by 3, that means each of these are 20 degrees. Okay? So now we know this one is 20, and we don't know what this little angle right here is, but since this is isosceles, we do know that these two angles have to be equal. So if I say 180 minus 20, that gives me 160. So that means these two angles have to add up together to be 160. So if I want to know what each of them are equal to, because I know they're equal, I can divide it by 2, and that gives me 80 degrees. So that tells me that these two angles are each 80 degrees. So angle D is 80 degrees. I hope that helps.